I worked for one of the largest window manufacturers, Anderson Windows, which is their arm of replacement windows is called Renewal by Anderson.
If you can sell those, you can sell anything.
That was the biggest sales job that really pushed me to say, you are uncomfortable. Because I was quoting for a normal residential house $40,000 to $100,000 in windows.
Yes. This house was quoted at $33,000 and I'm getting windows for about $5,000.
Yes.
Today I've got Ryan Williams with Stratum Foundation with me. Our mantra here at Success Never Rests is on your worst day be good, on your best day be great, and on every other day get better. We've known each other about 7 years now, met in the real estate foundation obviously. We work together as vendors, and I've just been watching you, your family, your work, and just kind of your hobbies in life in general. So I'm sure the Success Never Rests attitude is something you live by. Maybe you haven't always thought about it like that, but sure. I just know you haven't got to where you've gotten without having a success mindset. So I want to get into it, get to know you a little better, man. Appreciate you coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, I'm a big believer that, we're the product of the 5 people we surround ourselves with, regularly. But I also think it's important that we have the influences earlier in our life, I think, affect us as well. So I just wanted to touch with you on your background, kind of how you came up, and if you could point to any of those earlier, influences in your life that you could say, that person had a lot to do with who I am today.
Sure. Off camera, we're talking a little bit about my childhood and things like that, and to your point, as adults, I think those building blocks start very, very early. Whether we're cognizant of that or not at the time, later in adulthood, you say, why do I do this? How do I feel about this? Or why am I driven to this type of deal in my life? It goes back to, like a better term, how you were raised. So I don't know if I have a 5 count, but I've got a family unit that I grew up with that I could not be more happy with how I was raised, right? So this isn't a rags to riches type scenario. This is, I was raised in a good home. A mother, father, older brother, younger sister. You've got your family quirks and all that stuff, but as far as a nucleus, my life really was guided by those people in my household, the good and the bad. But as far as where I get my adulting behavior, the good part of that, I've misstepped along the way. But the core values come from not outside sources. I mean, there are coaches and people that along the way helped me. As to develop me, it was a strong mother, father, brother, sister, strong family unit.
Yeah. Man,
it still is to that day.
Yeah, I probably came up, it sounds like we had a similar bring up. Like I'm the same way. I don't have any sad stories to tell. Like I'm kind of embarrassed at how easy my life was coming up when I
but you
listened to
still
other
have
people.
to maintain that, right? So people who have grown up with a good environment don't always end up, good adults.
That's true. That's true.
So you have to take what you've been given and apply it. But this wasn't where I had some negative in my life and overcame it. This was, I was given all the tools that I could ever hope for, and I think I've applied them well.
Yeah. And I guess the story is you use those tools properly, and
that's right.
It's led to where you are today.
Correct.
And that's great. We were talking earlier off camera as well. I know you were a high school athlete. I mean, I think you mentioned you were a varsity letterman in 3 different sports as a freshman.
Right.
Which, if you're listening and you're not in the Dallas Metroplex, if you're lettering as a freshman in 3 sports at any level in the Dallas Metroplex, you're a good athlete. So what I want to get to, though, is because I was a high school coach, and I felt it played a major role in how, kids would do things later in life. And that's what I felt so important about it. So what I love about having guests on here is to ask them, how do you feel maybe that high school experience in athletics, has led to help you, be the father you are now and help build this, the businesses that you build.
Going back to the previous question when I said I have a great nucleus, there were other satellite people that helped me along my way, and most of those were coaches. Coming in as a freshman to a private school that we talked about, yeah, it was a smaller in nature, but there were still athletics and still athletes, in that school. A lot of D1 people come from a private environment, right?
Definitely.
So there was still talent around. And then as a freshman being thrown into quality, I was specifically talking about basketball. You've probably heard of the name Jason and David Benham. That were two twins that I think I was a freshman and they were juniors, seniors. I can't remember, but they were great influences just due to their faith, number one. But number two, their work ethic. Because I came from, when you're talented, you're born, you can work on things, but you're given that God-given ability, right? So it wasn't until that freshman year I realized, oh, you need to do more to be on that level. It was, okay, kind of a hit in the face of, well, okay, if I really want to improve, I need to push myself a little harder. Those coaches, those people around me really forced me to do that, and I'm a driven person, right? So I could either say, well, I'm going to fail. Well, that's not going to be an option. So I have to drive harder to perform at the level I expect myself to perform.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers the question or not,
Yeah.
but that environment pushed me hard.
Okay. Yeah, I think coaches at all levels. Now I'm in the, being in the business world and seeing business coaches. It's all about pushing people out of the box, pushing them out of that comfort zone.
Right.
So, you currently work with Stratum Foundation Repair. But I want to go back a little bit because I know you didn't start there.
Sure.
I want to know a little bit about your journey after North Texas and how you ended up doing what you are doing now.
So my background started with actually a waterfall effect from what my father did, which was banking, right? So he actually started a bank called Texas Heritage. It was in Rowlett, and then he would grow that for investors and sell it and move on to another bigger aspect of that. So I kind of had this banking environment just around the house, right?
Yeah.
So by natural default, out of college, I started to work as a loan officer, a mortgage loan officer.
Okay.
Did that for roughly 12 years. That got me to 2008, and I don't know if you remember 2008, pretty big credit crunch.
Pretty major financial
Yes.
crisis.
So what was happening there was I was originating at that time. I was originating mortgage loans for a home builder. So it was, I didn't have to go beat the streets to find business, but those applicants who were purchasing homes still had to qualify for mortgages. And with all the credit crunch, they changed the dynamic on how you would qualify. So some of these people I was writing loans for, still doing the same volume of work, those same people weren't qualifying. So your income started going down tremendously. So my early stages were banking, and it taught me a lot. So that was and we'll get into this a little bit, but Stratum is a face-to-face type environment, occupation, right? As far as what I do. Loan officer, I was very young. People were trusting me with their financial decision on what would probably their biggest investment of their life, right? So I had to real quickly learn how to present myself. You can be young, but if you get someone who's comfortable around you, that's I don't think youth is a deterrent. If you're presenting yourself like you're knowledgeable of what you're trying to do. So that taught me real quick. You've got to be on your A game. You can't have a day off because this person is the first time they're going to see you. And you've got a builder behind you who's expecting you to write these mortgages. You're one of the first, other than the salesperson at the builder, you're the next person that they're going to see, this customer in this process. So you have to be on your A game. But that went real well in 2008. Credit crunch happened, and I floated around. I worked for one of the largest window manufacturers, Anderson Windows, which is their arm of replacement windows is called Renewal by Anderson.
If you can sell those, you can sell anything.
That was the biggest sales job that really pushed me to say, you are uncomfortable. Because I was quoting for a normal residential house $40,000 to $100,000 in windows.
Yes. This house was quoted at $33,000, and I'm getting windows for about $5,000.
Yes. So imagine the no's that I got, and still having to go in the next day and expect a no. So almost that, and I was successful to a degree in that I didn't like the the pitchy environment that I was in.
Yeah.
But the training, all that, nothing wrong with that. But that's just how they do things. But what I took out of that was, if you can do this, you can do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because no is no longer a deterrent.
Yeah.
I've heard it too many
Heard it
times
so
in that environment.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, tell me a little bit about what you are currently doing with Stratum, and then we'll get into just, a little bit, few foundation topics.
So right now I'm the sales manager for Stratum. So what that entails is basically I manage all of our outside inspectors. And what that, to micro that, it's coming up with presentations, in-house. So we do this in-house. So I am meeting a customer who feels they have or suspects they might have a foundation issue,
Yes.
right? So we get a call from the customer. The girls at the office book the appointment. We show up and we're off and going. So as far as my overall day-to-day, it is managing all of our inspectors who do that, just making sure our presentation is in line. If they have questions, they call me on certain scenarios. But it's pretty. We've done this so well. It's pretty fluid. So really, it's me out there managing my stuff, and then if I get some calls from the other guys, it's working to help you. But so that's kind of my role, and it's been doing it 12 years.
Cool.
Yeah.
So staying on the foundation topic, what do you find to be the biggest cause of foundation issues, here in North Texas, where
So
you guys focus?
the root cause is our soil. We have a clay-based soil, which in turn what that means is we have expansion and contraction depending on the weather scenario, right? So most soils, you go out to East Texas, you get more of a sandy loam. You go further west, you start getting more rocky. There's this little corridor kind of coming from Houston up. That's this black gumbo, black clay soil. So the hard part in managing that is because it is so expansive and contractive that you have to stay on top of keeping it consistent, right?
Okay.
Well, our weather patterns do not allow for that. So we have, I was looking at an article the other day, in October, typically, in a normal season, October produces the most amount of rainfall in the Metroplex. We think it's spring.
Yeah.
By the numbers, it's been October. So we get these fall rains, the ground swells, it expands, and we'll stay somewhat wet through spring. And then we hit hot and we hit dry, and that soil will start contracting. Well, that soil is what is our initial support for our foundations, for our slabs. So once we start having contraction in the soil, our slabs start settling, right? So, and you can have issues that are the opposite of that is too much moisture, drainage problems, things like that.
Yeah.
But the underlying issue is the soil base,
Always
the
soil.
type of soil.
Gotcha. And then one last thing on foundations, then we're going to move on, is, what's one tip you'd give a homeowner, if they could do it today, that would save them thousands of dollars in the future?
So it's kind of a couple of things. It is pay attention to your house. You'd be surprised at how many inspections I do where I'm walking with the customer outside the house. And they say, "Oh, I never come on this side of the house." For whatever reason, it's a strip between you and your neighbor. Nothing over there. No reason to go over there. But I tell homeowners once a week, walk your house. Look for things that, because until you know what shouldn't be there, you don't know, or what should be there, you don't know what shouldn't be there.
Exactly.
And vice versa. So walk your house once a week. The most important preventative thing that North Texas homeowners can do is make sure they have consistent water around the perimeter of the home. So we would say use your soaker hose,
Okay.
right, for that. So keep that ground from, think of it like a heartbeat, the soil. We don't want that soil in the summer months contracting. We want it expanded. So in the summer months, really the only way we can do that, since we can't rely on the rain, is utilizing a soaker hose. So use your soaker hoses and just walk your house. Your home's going to tell you some things, but you have to be in tune with your house to know what it's
Exactly.
telling you.
Yeah. All right. I know you're an avid outdoorsman.
Yes, sir.
And so I want to get on to that.
Yes, sir.
Outdoorsman, hunter. So first, where did this passion come from?
Later in life, this was one of these deals to where this wasn't something that I did growing up. My brother was my main influence in, he's about 2 years older than me, in the hunting realm, because it's where it started was, we talked a lot about high school and sports, and you have this drive, you have this competition. Well,
Yeah.
that's cut off. But it doesn't cut off internally.
Yeah.
So you try to find these avenues, some good, some bad, of putting that feel, that drive into something appreciable and something that's good.
Yeah.
So early 30s, my brother had always been fishing, hunting. He kind of grabbed me and said, "Hey, give it a shot." Most people would start with an easy go get. We've had firearms in terms of rifles and things like that. I've done some hog hunting, but he's like, "Look, you want to enjoy this? Go get a bow, right? Bow and arrow."
Mm-hmm.
So I did, and I realized real quick, this is a completely different hunting style than what most people anticipate hunting is. Sitting in a big, comfortable blind with a rifle, 400 yards downwind of shooting something. So
of a food source.
Of a food source. Now, food sources are still in play, but imagine with a bow, with a bow and arrow, you need that animal, ideally, to be ethical. Depending on how good you are, you want that animal within about 20, 30 yards.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part. The animal is, these are animals that live by not dying. I mean, if that makes sense, right?
Survival's all they think about.
They know every blade of grass, they know every tree, they know everything that's going on in their environment. So when you bring in something that's not natural to them, they pick up on it. They pick up where you walk, they pick up on how you smell. So condensing the macro of there's a deer 400 yards away to squeezing that into where a deer is, you need that deer to be 25 yards away. That's the drive I was looking for. Mm-hmm. It is a 24/7, my wife will tell you, 24/7, 365 something in my brain about hunting every day. It might be something small. It might be what we talked about. I'm going out to my local. We've got property out in Kansas, and we have property in East Texas. So I'll be out in East Texas just doing some work, and that's part of your hunting, right?
Yeah.
So it's putting energy into something that's you're developing land. You're working with nature. Bottom line is that filled a role inside of me that I had left athletically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was able to put that somewhere. So that's where that came from.
And so, what would you say has been your favorite hunt out of all the hunts you've done?
It actually was a hunt that I wasn't successful in. I went to New Mexico. Me and my brother went on an elk hunt. So elk hunting, kind of the same in terms of your prep and your schematics and your game plan. But in terms of how you're doing this in training, we are elevation changes, mountains, right? So your body's going through a lot more. I trained about 6 months for this. So a couple days in, my brother, he got his elk. Wonderful animal. Day one, I passed on an elk because typically you got 7 days. Literally within the first 2 hours, I went up the face of the mountain with a ridge. I wasn't expecting to see something where I did, so I thought, well, this is easy. I'm gonna wait. Did not see another bull for the remaining 7 days.
Wow.
But I was still scaling these faces, scaling these ridges. Ankles at night were swollen. So I wasn't successful, but it showed me I could do something like that. So I wasn't successful in the harvest of the animal. I was very successful in the personal feeling of I did something here that a lot of people just A, can't do, or B, they would stop. Because I thought about it. This is just not worth it. So I was unsuccessful in the harvest, in my mind very successful in what I was doing.
So that made it your favorite hunt.
Absolutely did.
So then I have to ask you, what would you feel has been your biggest disappointment on a hunting trip? Would it be the same trip?
It kind of will. So depending on how what lens you're looking through. Mm-hmm. I did not harvest a whitetail last year, which had been a few years since that has happened. So I did not have anything to show for my 12 months of work last year. But that going into that, me and my brother decided we're going to start setting parameters on what we're going to try to hunt and harvest. So nothing came about that hit my parameter. So it wasn't a failure, it was I just didn't get the opportunity really that I was looking for in the whole scope of things. So I didn't look at that as a failure, and even the elk hunt, I was disappointed. So you could say that was a failure that I didn't accomplish my task. The New Mexico hunt kind of answers both of those.
Yeah.
Both
Well,
those questions.
sometimes, depend on how we're built, and it sounds like you're built this way. Our biggest disappointment often happens in what we also feel is, some of our greatest
Sure.
accomplishments.
No, absolutely.
So, what would you consider your fantasy trip or hunt? If you could just do any hunt, no expense, what would that be?
If we're talking something that's actually achievable but still in the fantasy realm, it would probably be back on either not necessarily in the same location, but an elk hunt, maybe in more of the Colorado environment, which is harder. But there's pros and cons to each. But I'm not a fantasy guy. I'm a what can I actually do?
Yeah.
Let's make things more realistic. Because if I think I can do it, I'll find a way.
Yeah.
So instead of saying what's my fantasy, it's no. Well, let's tailor this to what maybe I can do. It might be on the far out reaches, but if it's something I think I can get to and accomplish, I'm going to do it. So I'd say it'd probably be another elk hunt, but maybe in a different environment.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you kind of enjoy the whole process of
Absolutely.
the hunting, kind of like as entrepreneurs, we have to enjoy the process of getting to where we're trying to go.
Well, like for a real estate agent, you had a closing today. That's the end result, right? But you did all these other things that I hope you enjoy leading up to that.
Yeah.
Whether that's doing your lunch and learns or whatever the case may be. I'll stay in my lane in terms of what all that entails.
Yeah.
But on the hunting side, it's putting in food plots, it's putting up tree stands, it's cutting hundreds of trees down, trying to manipulate the land. So your hunting comes to an end very quickly once you harvest that animal.
Yeah.
But most of the memories and the accomplishments are what led up to that. It's a lot of that is the build up and the prep work for that end result.
Yeah. All right. So I've always been impressed, with your winning mindset. I just tell that you have it. So I wanted to ask you, how do you keep, yourself motivated from day to day to day to day?
Yeah, it's tough.
Because we're kind of in similar, obviously different industries, but I know your day is probably a lot like mine.
Sure.
Can get pretty monotonous, probably.
It does. The idea that someone relies on me, wife, kids, that's the ultimate motivator, right? But it's also wanting to show me and others, especially my tight-knit circle, in the Stratum circle too. We are growing. You can't grow being stagnant.
Yeah.
Right. So, and we have in our roughly 18 years. I mean, it's just been an upward trajectory, and that's hard to do in real estate, right? So, in any aspect of real estate, whether it's construction or the agents or what have you.
This is all economy based.
It is. So you're already subject to something you have no control over.
Yeah.
People start buying houses. People start going Home Depot. People stop thinking of their houses. What are you gonna do? So that is a motivator. Is that I've already got a uphill battle against something I can't control. So I have to be every morning. We're doing this. I mean, I run 4 to 5 estimates a day, and it is. You use the term monotonous. It's a little different because I'm seeing different homes, but what I do is the same.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to. I've always told myself and told my inspectors, you've done this 1,000 times. Chances are this person you're speaking with has only done it once, and you're the first person. So you have to have that mindset of, I'd like to take today off, but that's the customer that I might lose because they're not off. They need to hear everything that you just said 5 minutes ago, an hour ago to the previous customer. So the motivation is if you pull off the brake or pull off the gas a little bit, it doesn't take long before you realize I can't catch back up. I've let this slide too far. So going back to what we've talked about, in the interview is my type of personality, how I was raised. It is there's time to relax, but when it's work time, and you work.
No one achieves, at the level you have in working life without having a purpose and goal setting. So how do you personally approach, setting your goals, planning for the future? I know you're thinking about your family and those types of things. So, how do you personally go about that?
Well, faith is my faith. My Christian faith is very important to me. So I feel like some of this is in God's hands. But He's going to let me fail if that's what I choose to do. So in terms of how I'm kind of working towards the second half of life, there's really not a roadmap that I say I'm going to stay on. I'm going to see what is in front of me and make my decisions as I go, and be cognizant enough to know that I might have an option or two, and having my ducks in a row to know how each one of these options might affect what you said, my family, my children, and all the above. So kind of I don't want to be hamstrung to anything in terms of liabilities in life. My house is my only debt, and it's really an asset, So my family's my family, we position ourselves to where I'm not tied to anybody other than my family, right? So not having those strings pulling at you give me a little bit of grace on if an opportunity came and I wanted to take that opportunity. There's not a lot other than, is it the right decision?
Yeah.
Keeping me from doing that.
All right. So I'm someone that believes that the obstacle is the way. The challenges make us who we are, essentially. Can you talk about a time when you've had to overcome an obstacle or a personal challenge, and how it possibly impacted, your career?
Let's see. So career-based. It was probably that transition from, we talked earlier about originating loans. You do something for a long time, you get good at it.
Yeah.
And then that transition to, what am I going to do next? So there was a lot of, and we didn't talk too much how I got into Stratum, but I was kind of bouncing around a couple of places. So the struggle there was, well, I'm not going to go back into this thing I've been doing for a long time and I was successful at. So there's intimidation of, well, am I going to be good at this? So I tried to say, well, at the end of the day, if you're face-to-face selling mortgages or foundation repair, you've got that thing that some people just don't have, for better or for worse, to be able to do that. So the hurdle was trusting myself that it doesn't matter what environment I'm in. I've built tools to be able to overcome most anything that's been thrown my way.
Yeah.
Like we talked about, this isn't a rags and riches. I haven't had a lot of what some people would say you've had a lot of obstacles. I've got my personal obstacles that to me are very personal.
Yeah.
In terms of getting over, and some of those things, you just have to be confident in yourself that you can do it, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got the tools, you've built them to do that. So really, the obstacle is just not knowing where I'm going after I've been somewhere for so long. For 12 years.
Yeah, just a little self-doubt of
Sure.
doing something different.
Absolutely.
I felt that as well. So, well, how do you hope to use, your success that you've achieved, the future success, to impact, your community, your family, and I know you probably think about legacy as well.
Sure. Well, in this line of, and I'll kind of keep it tailored to the line of work, right? So in this line of work, I'm just as happy with someone giving me a review because we did great work, as I am that we didn't recommend work. So I think the legacy, personally, and tethering that to work related with Stratum, is we are an honest group. I'm an honest person. If we feel something doesn't need to be done, we're going to tell you. And I think that, I tell my inspectors, you're going to get just as much business telling someone they don't need work as if you force something that doesn't need to be there. You don't know the downstream from you telling somebody, honestly, monitor it, but you don't need work right now. They're going to tell 5, 10, 25 people who eventually those guys are going to need some work, I would assume.
Exactly.
Right? Versus coming off as pushy. Now we're honest, and if you need it, you need it. But the legacy, I think, is as a person, as a company, is trustworthy. We're not going to do things that we feel are under the bridge or underwater, and I hope that facilitates through my family, my children, and all of that.
Well, I'm a testimonial to that honesty. That's why you're sitting there today, is because 7 years ago you told me I really didn't need work. I just needed to put some drip hoses around.
Right.
And other foundation people told me differently. So,
Sure.
so yeah, I think obviously that legacy, your children, your family, and others seeing that will end up being, what you're remembered for. So to wrap it up, I want to give you a chance, add anything. You have anything you'd like to add that we might have missed that you just you want to speak on real quick?
Well, first, thanks for having me. This is new to me, so this is, we talked off camera at our lunch and learn, I like podcasts, I like the idea behind it, never seen one in action, so first of all, thanks for having me. Really, it's just, everybody's got their projection where they think they should be and what their life should be like. Just because you're not there now doesn't mean it's not going to facilitate. You might need to be where you are now, but you might not like, so that the person in charge puts you where you need to be at another point, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So you might feel like you're getting stepped on, or every you wake up, you're walking uphill every day, but to go downhill, you got to get up the hill,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's really about it.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think, often we're not succeeding at a pace we think we should, and we feel like we're failing, but we're actually winning and,
Sure.
and succeeding. We're just not where we think we should possibly be.
Absolutely.
So, well, man, I appreciate you joining me today. It's truly a pleasure. Always good to talk to you, and wish you continued
Thank you.
success.
You as well.
Appreciate it, man.